Hello there, welcome to the program. For several months now, Kaduna State has been in the news for one thing or the other. Unfortunately, most of it is for the wrong reasons. The abduction of students of two tertiary institutions in the state by ransom-seeking bandits dominated news headlines for several weeks. In the midst of that, the state government announced its intention to sack some civil servants. This led to an industrial action led by the Nigeria Labour Congress, which locked down Kaduna State for days until a truce was brokered by the federal government. Even at that, the dispute has not been completely laid to rest. But just as the dust was yet to settle on the labor dispute, the state government announced an increment in the tuition fees to be paid by students of the state-owned Kaduna State University, KASU. The hike from about 26,000 naira to over 150 naira was considered too much and too steep in a state like Kaduna that had promised its citizens free education. Expectedly, this sparked protests from the students and condemnation from several quarters. The university was consequently shut down. But the state government argues that it lacks the huge resources required to drive tertiary education single-handedly. However, as a precaution, it put in place safety nets for students who may not and cannot afford the new fees through the introduction of scholarships and student loans facility. This move has not gone down well with many people, particularly students and parents, who insist that the hike is not sustainable in the face of harsh economic realities. We shall interrogate all the contending issues in what appears to be a brewing crisis in the education sector in Kaduna State. Was the timing right or wrong? Will access to education be impeded? Why were critical stakeholders, including the students and their parents, not carried along in reaching this decision? What can be the way out of the impasse, considering how critical education is to the development of any society? Now join us as we talk with the Executive Secretary of the Kaduna State Scholarship and Loans Board, Malam Hassan. He is my guest today. Hassan Rewan is the Executive Secretary of the Loans Board. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, we'll go on a short break. When we return, we'll be going straight into our discussion. All right, thank you so much for staying with us. Our guest is the Executive Secretary of the Kaduna State Scholarship and Loans Board, Malam Hassan Rewan. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Rewan.
Thank you very much for having me.
Right. So, education in Kaduna State, let's begin from that end. At the beginning of the life of this administration, 6 years ago, there was talk of a free education to help those who are unable to get their children to school, put them through school and get some form of education or the other. What changed between then and now?
Yeah, so the only thing that has changed has been, nothing has changed. It's just been an actualization of that promise for free education for all. And from the first time to date, the government of Kaduna State has been working assiduously to make sure that we achieve that. One of the major things that was done was to make basic education free, so from primary to secondary school, such education is free today. And it's not just about, making a political statement and then not backing it up with action. For those that have been following Kaduna State, the major part of our budget goes to the highest sector. The highest budget goes to the education sector. And this money has been spent in building new classrooms, renovating classrooms, making sure that education is free. If you want education to be free, considering the teeming population of people that were in school and the increased number of people that started going to school because of free education, it's such a huge project. And in order to encourage these people to go into school, you know, things like uniform were given to them free of charge. You know, the Almajiri system was banned, and then we made education free so that such children can be integrated. We sent some of the Almajiri students out of the state that are not from the state. Those that were coming, that were Kaduna State citizens that are elsewhere, we received them back in, integrated them with their parents, put them back into school. We made basic education free. Now, in addition to that, in 2008, the act that established the Kaduna State Scholarship and Loans Board was modified. It used to be Kaduna State Scholarship Board. It was modified to become the Kaduna State Scholarship and Loans Board. By December 2019, a 2 billion naira fund was syndicated for education loan. This fund is meant to be available for citizens of the state, especially middle class citizens, people that are earning decent wages, but who will not be able to bring money at once, either to take their children to school in Nigeria, locally or internationally. This fund has been available. In addition to that, we've also tried to improve education by way of Kaduna State University. A new campus permanent site has been built. Over 9 billion has been expended on that permanent site. So the government has kept its promise. Education has been free, and it's free for basic education, and not only free but compulsory.
What do you mean when you talk about basic education? From
primary,
what class to what?
So yes. From primary through secondary school.
Okay, so primary
through secondary school.
Through secondary school.
That education is free.
That's what you consider as basic.
That is basic education.
Okay.
And then what we did with the Kaduna State Scholarship and Loans Board, we institutionalized a scholarship scheme. That scholarship scheme, you have the merit scholarship, you have the need-based scholarship.
We'll come to all of that.
Yes, and the scholarship scheme funds has been made available as at February 2021, when we suspended payment because of this new development. We have paid scholarship bursaries to 6,858 students. Every student takes home 109,000 to take care of their tuition and to take care of some of their fees. I can tell you that there's no state in this country that pays that amount of money. That is all in fulfillment of making it possible for every citizen of Kaduna State to have access to education.
Do we have, or does the state have statistics of the number of East Indigenes that are in higher institutions, that is in tertiary institutions, for instance,
yes.
For it to determine that it cannot extend the free education to that level of education?
Yeah, so you see, the state is clear about something. While we make basic education free, we're clear that tertiary education across the world is a joint effort of government, parent, corporate organizations, and wealthy individuals. If you look at the top in the universities in the world, they are run by endowment. So what we are doing here is, there's been a kind of subsidy. It's a kind of a partial subsidy. So even when the tuition fee was hiked from 26,000 to 150,000, 150,000 will not be sufficient. In Kaduna State University, the overhead and the salaries of the staff is 5 billion naira. It's over 5 billion naira. In the year under review, just 288 million naira was raised by the university. It's not just sustainable for that to happen. Now, the issue, when you're talking about subsidy, when you're talking about making education free, you know that a lot of people will need to understand something. We cannot subsidize education for everybody, including the rich. If you're paying 26,000 in 2004, this is 2021. You want to pay 26,000 naira to study medicine. It's not sustainable. It's not possible. So, but the idea is, let us gradually put these fees to a reasonable level. And then when we put it to that reasonable level, those that are capable should pay the exact amount that is required. Those that are in the middle class should access that 2 billion loan. Before we did this increment, we had put this loan scheme in place since December 2019. And then you have the people that cannot pay. Even the 26,000 naira that we're talking about, there are some people that cannot pay it. What the state is doing now is that, let's make sure we identify those people. Now, you know the interesting thing? Kaduna State, there's a social register. We have over 2 million people in the social register. These 2 million people are educated to be poor. Of these 2 million people, over 27,000 of them are in tertiary institutions in Nigeria. So what we've done now is we're integrating that 27,000 people into our database. so that once any of these 27,000 people apply for our scholarship, the need-based scholarship, they will have a straight path towards the payment of their tuition fee. So the government of Malam Nasir El-Rufai is passionate about ensuring that nobody drops out. The only thing is that we want this subsidy, we want it to be targeted. We don't want it to be an envelope, an all-commerce, free-for-all, in a situation where people can really afford it and they just refuse to make those payments.
Some persons have raised issues with the timing of the increment in school fees from 26,000 naira to 150. Why did it take 6 years for this to happen? And why did the state government choose the time it did to make this announcement?
Yeah, so I will agree with you that the timing, may not be perfect. And to that extent, what I mean is, this is something we should have done many years ago. In fact, this is something that should have been done before this administration. But this is where we are today. It's obvious that we know what the economy is, is all about. We know how much we are making from the FAC coming in at the end of the month. 90% or over 90% of the money coming from FAC is paid on salaries for civil servants. It's not just sustainable. People are clamoring for quality education. People are clamoring for good roads, good hospitals. Security is a challenge in the country. So everybody knows the kind of infrastructural development that this government has put in place in Kaduna State. And like I told you, we're building a permanent site for CASU. We're putting about 9 billion there. Funds need to be unlocked. So this is the time when we need to reinvent, education financing for tertiary education. And it's extremely important that other states and even the federal government begin to look at Kaduna State and see how we can, how we will come about a kind of a proper financing structure that is tenable and sustainable under the circumstances. This is something must give. You cannot be asking for that low level of school fees. Yes, you can decide that money should go into it. But when money go into it, you still ask for other things from elsewhere. Now, do a comparison between Kaduna State University as a state university, compare it with other state universities in the country. Go to Lagos State University, go to Ladoke Akintola University. Is it 26,000 naira that is paid? So what I mean by the timing is that we should have done this many years before this administration. But at the end of the day, it's obvious that it's no longer sustainable. And this administration is determined to make sure that it lives up to its promise and leaves a footprint in the education sector. And to be able to do that, we need to make sure that Kaduna State University ranks among the top universities in this country. We need to deepen research. We need to deepen the faculty. We need to give the infrastructure. All these things require funding.
Now, apparently, there wasn't some kind of consultation with parents or even the students' body before this was done.
The truth about it is that, you see, up till this moment, people are fixated in their mind. The argument is that the school fees should not be increased. You see, let's understand, what are we trying to achieve? People are arguing that children will drop out of school. That's the objective, and that's the reason why they are saying that school fees should be reduced, should be kept as low as 26,000 or 50,000, as the case may be. But I think the argument should not be that. The argument should be, what is government doing to make sure that everybody that cannot afford, and genuinely so cannot afford, we're able to meet up to that. Now, so as the conversation is ongoing, for a lot of people, students and parents that understand where we are going to, they understand. A lot of people have just decided not to understand. Let me give you an example. Immediately, it was obvious that this school fees hike was going to take place. Our office, got in touch with the management of Kaduna State University to link up with the student, to be able to, so that we can begin to engage them, so that they can understand the pathway for them to be able to access funding, to be able to go to school. But a lot of them, the student leadership were misguided and refused to allow us access to them. When the school came on board and registration was meant to start, this same student went and blocked registration. The whole idea was that if this registration goes on board, whoever is not able to pay school fees, government will intervene. One thing is clear, the Commissioner of Education has stated it, the Governor of Kaduna State has mentioned it, under no circumstance will any student drop out of school on account of inability to pay school fees. So this school fees increment, if you ask me, is actually targeted to ensure that the people that should be able to pay
actually pay. You can't do subsidy across board. Those that are genuinely in need, already there are social intervention that are in place. They just need to apply for it. They go through that process and they have access to that.
Now, prior to this time, the Kaduna State government operated a bursary system.
Yes.
And that bursary system was abolished in preference for the scholarship and loans facility.
So we operated a bursary system until recently, within the last, it was abolished in the last, I think, 1 month or so. And the essence is that before now, once you take an exam, I mean, you write an essay and you pass an essay, you are able to access 109,000 naira per student, irrespective of your economic circumstances. So which means even a child of a rich person, once he takes the exams, he goes through the processes, he's able to access the 109,000. Now immediately we realize that we need to channel the most of our resources to the people that actually need it. So we have to, you know, abolish the bursary, migrate everybody that's currently on the bursary to a need-based system. That's what we're doing. And that need-based system is going to open up in July 5th. That's next month. When that system comes on board, for you that say you are needy, you have to prove that you are needy. So when you apply, you write your essay, you go ahead and produce a tax clearance certificate for your parent or a death certificate where they are not alive. The essence of that is to be able to understand the turnover of your parents, to be able to place, you know, them economically. And you know what? It's been giving us interesting results. We've seen situations where a family is asking for need-based scholarship, and when we check the annual, you know, turnover of the father, we saw an income of 32 million in the year under review. We saw a family where the father had an income of 16 million in the year under review. The mother had an income of 10 million in the year under review. That is 26 million in one house. That same house is applying for a need-based scholarship. So the system we're putting in place now, we want to bring out such people that are capable to pay this fee. We take them out of the bucket. The more we take out the rich people, the more we'll create the opportunity for the poor people to have access to education. So this scheme is actually aimed at ensuring all-inclusiveness for the indigent student, rather than, you know, otherwise as it's been brandished.
You have mentioned two types of scholarships here. You have mentioned the merit-based scholarship and the needs-based scholarship. You need to break that down. What is this merit-based one? So what is the need-based one? Yes. And is there any other one?
Yes. So we have it's broad-based, is broadly divided into the merit and the need, and of course you have each of them is the foreign and the local. So our area of focus is the local. The need-based scholarship is for students that are indigent. What I mean by indigent, I mean students that are poor. So they will not be able to go to school if they don't have government intervention. Even that 26,000 that was being paid before, there's some students that cannot afford it. Mal and Natural Enterprise led government is determined to make sure those students are in school. So all they need to do is from July 5th, they apply for that, they go online, they apply for that scholarship. They don't need to go to the scholarship board. And once they apply, from now they should process their tax document for their parent or death certificate as the case may be. Once they put it in there and we go through document review, we check with their universities to check their studentship, immediately we pay their tuition fees straight to their schools. That is the need-based scholarship. The merit-based scholarship is pretty straightforward. If you're in the local university, you should maintain a 4.0 or 5-point CGPA, or you maintain a 3.0 of a 4-point CGPA. Once you apply for it, you don't need to come with your tax certificate to determine, you know, your economic evaluation. But you see, one of the most interesting things that we have is that we've been able to get a database of over 27,000 Kaduna State citizens who are on the social register. These people are in tertiary institutions across the country. So these people, once we lock them into our system, we don't need to do any evaluation to check their economic status, because we already know their economic status. You can imagine if we're able to onboard most of these 27,000 people into the safety net to be able to have access to tertiary education. You can imagine what that will happen. One thing is clear. The antecedent of Kaduna State in education is clear. Like I told you, before we got bursary out of the way, we were paying 109,000. There are some oil-rich states. I know Delta State was paying 20,000. I know Gombe State was paying about 7,000, and these monies were not regular. We don't go into things just for the politics of it. We go into things with the required outcome. What is the essence of giving somebody 20,000 naira to go to school when they cannot pay his tuition fee? Now we've decided that, okay, now we're even taking it a step further. It's no longer 109,000. It is whatever is your tuition fee. Once you don't have you can prove. But the issue is you need to prove it. We cannot determine need just by the cap you are wearing, the clothes you are wearing, the shoe you are wearing. There has to be a scientific approach, a sustainable approach of determining that. And that is why we introduced this. The social register is one way, the tax system is another way. Now, you know the interesting thing, the merit-based scholarship, last year, 42 students were outside the country. They went outside the country. As I speak to you, they are currently in various countries, in United Kingdom, United States, in Germany, United Arab Emirates, in Hungary. Why did we do that investment? It's because we pushed them to study courses that are either not available in Nigeria or are in short supply in Nigeria. The idea is that, and you know what? This Kaduna State University we're talking about, a lot of the lecturers from Kaduna State Universities were actually sent on this foreign scholarship. The whole idea behind that is for them to go and learn best practices, learn what needs to be learned, and come back and develop our citizenry. You see, we have a holistic human capital development plan in the state. And everybody in that sector, education-wise, is playing a role in it. As I speak to you, last month, 34 students were announced, unveiled. They will go to school from September. While we're doing the investment in foreign scholarship, we're also doing the investment in, locally. Like I told you, over 9 billion have been spent in KASU in building a new campus. A lot of money is spent in so that we can deepen the research, we can deepen, the learning in that school. At the end of the day, people need to understand that in the next few years, the placing of Kaduna State, the ranking of Kaduna State University will not be at par, will not be the same at par with its contemporaries. But we need to take the decision now. What we need to do is, which we're trying to do, is to syndicate financing of major stakeholders, create, that endowment, bring citizenry to come out. Those that are rich, they should pay the bill. Do you know the interesting thing? You see a family of 4. Maybe for some family or cultural reasons, one of their maybe daughter is in KASU. She's paying 26,000 naira. In that same family, you have maybe the boy or a girl, she's in Sudan, she's in Uganda, or she's in Europe. If she's in Sudan, she's paying money for school fees over 1 million, she's paying flight ticket, she's paying upkeep, she's paying all of this. In the same family. Why should you now subsidize for that person for 26,000? And this is the crux of the matter. And this is what we need to be looking at. So whether the school fees, we should move the conversation from a reduction of school fees to how can we put most of the students that cannot pay into safety net. This should be the issue. So that he that cannot pay, even if government says the school fees is 1 million naira, it shouldn't bother you. Because once we are able to bring you in the net, the government will pay it.
Yeah, but you mentioned one of the conditions for accessing that loan,
yes,
which is a provision of tax certificates.
No, so you are getting it wrong. We segregated our students into 3. The first category I told you are those that can earn, they can pay whatever is the amount. The second category are the middle class people. Yeah. These are people that are earning a decent wage. These people are earning, you are paying 50,000, 200,000, 100,000, but you cannot pay, you don't want to pay at once. You go and take a loan. You don't need a tax certificate to go collect a loan. You just need to apply to... The tax certificate has to do with the scholarship. It is the third level. That is the scholarship. Now, this tax certificate, people will say, what if I'm a housewife? What if I'm a retired teacher? What if I don't work? How do I get tax certificate? Tax certificate is not only for people that are working. This is the misconception people have. Once you're an adult, you can go to any tax office there in the 23 local governments of Kaduna State. You just need to go and prove your financial base. If your certificate is nil, if you've not earned anything under the year, you should prove that it's nil. They give you a nil, it shows that you've not earned. That will make you to be the priority. We will prioritize you above every other person. So we just need to have a way that we can. People keep asking one question: how do you know who is poor? So this is just what we're trying to do.
Okay, let's get back a little bit to the scholarship scheme.
Yes.
How many of your indigenes, the indigenes of Kaduna State, were able to get that scholarship, say, in 2020?
Okay, so to start with, we've abolished indigenship in Kaduna State. So we do citizens. So in Kaduna State, we will talk about citizens. Like I told you, 34 students recently went outside the country to study. And out of that 34 students, there's a student called Okweyemi. Okweyemi is a proud citizen of Kaduna State. Now, coming back to your question, the citizens of Kaduna State, like I told you, as at February 2021, when we stopped this scheme, 6,858 students have benefited from the bursary. Now, the next question people will ask us is, okay, look, we have over 20,000 students in, for example, KASU. And if you're telling us that 6,000 students across the state benefited, that's a small number. But you know what? we can't use that statistics that way. We should look at 6,856 of how many that applied. You know what I mean? In KASU, you have 20,000 students, but only 1,300 applied. And out of that 1,300, over 500 have been paid already. So we've been doing extensive advocacy. The issue is, you know how it is, people don't usually trust government. People feel that if you don't know somebody, you will not get something in government. But we've demystified that in Kaduna State Scholarship and Loans Board. We have shown that it is what you know and not who you know. So we've been doing extensive advocacy, we've done local government advocacy, we've done schools advocacy, and the numbers are increasing, by the way. So we'll continue to sustain that advocacy. But what we know that is the joker that will increase the number astronomically is this social register. Because we know their data, we know their names, we know their houses, we know their schools.
Is there a reluctance by the students or by their parents to take advantage of this, given the low numbers that you just mentioned? And that you have to go out of your way to do advocacy.
Yes, so the truth about it is, when it comes to government intervention, like I said, there's apathy because people don't believe in it. When you look at 2018 when we started, and 2021, the numbers are increasing astronomically. So we are making progress. Now the loan, the reality is that what we've found is a lot of people don't want to go for the loan option. You know why? Because they believe that they should get scholarship. People don't want to take the loan option because they don't want to pay back. So, but the issue is we're getting it wrong. A child of a very poor person, we're not asking that child to go take a loan. We're asking that child to go for a need-based scholarship. But if you're a middle-class person, if you are earning 300,000 or 200,000 or 100,000 per year, and you are told to come and pay 450,000 in the life of your child's education, 450,000 over a period of 5 years, with a single-digit interest rate, and you refuse to pay it because you prefer to go and take a scholarship, because that scholarship was available. Don't forget, I told you that in bursary, we were not checking economic standing. So because there was a window for them to get that grant, they prefer to go for that grant rather than go for the loan. But we are closing that window now. The window is now just for the poor. So, and immediately, let me tell you what, in the last 2 weeks, we've seen an increment in the number of people that are asking for loan. And we intend to sustain that.
And the loan,
Yes.
What is the tenure of such a loan? If I were to apply and get a loan, what is the tenure? How long will it take me, for instance, to pay back? When do I start paying?
So let me tell you. So if, for example, you have a student that is just going into school and he is meant to pay 150,000 naira, you take a loan for 150,000 over a period of 5 years. After 1 year, you do a top-up of 100,000 naira. Let's assume you got exposed over the life of 4 years, 450,000 naira. That 450,000 naira you can pay over a period of 5 years. It's a single digit. Now what happens is that for you, the father, because you are earning, you start paying immediately. However, Malam Nasir Al-Rufai has given a directive that we should engage the banks. We've been doing that in the last couple of weeks to see that there can be a moratorium in a way that the sponsors can begin to pay for the loan after the child graduates from school. But you know, this is something that is in the works. What we have currently is that you begin to pay, but how much is this repayment? This repayment is less than 10,000 naira per month. You know what I mean? It's less than 10,000 naira per month. So
and it is the sponsors that have to pay, and not the student.
And not the student. This sponsor can be the father, can be the mother, can be the uncle, can be whoever. But if you don't have any of this, somebody will tell me, what if I don't have anybody? What if I don't have anybody can be a sponsor? So you have no business going to look for loan. Go for the need-based scholarship. Go there, and then you will get it there. As long as you prove it. What we've seen is, you see, when you say something is free, everybody wants to go into that pocket. We need to be able to take the ones that don't need to be there out of that pocket. That's just the whole idea. And people need to be sincere, people need to be patriotic, people need to work together. This is a joint effort. So like I told you there's somebody that has an annual turnover of 32 million that was actually looking for a need-based scholarship. In other climes, that person should be donating to an endowment for Kaduna State University. So there needs to be citizen responsibility. There needs to be citizen engagement. They need to be facing the reality. If we need to, you cannot be asking for this. Something must give. If you are asking for quality, then you will have to do the right investment in this. So what we're doing is, people are asking that, okay, so you as a government university, you want to now start generating revenue, and you say you're a government university. That's a misconception. If you're talking about, yes, we want to generate revenue from those that can afford it. We want to pay for those that cannot pay. We want to give loan for those that are in the middle class that don't want to pay at once. At the end of it all, government will continue to invest money. Even at 150,000, if all the students, 20,000 students in KASU pay, that is 3 billion. I told you that the tuition fee in 1 year in KASU with overhead is over 5 billion. So it means that that 3 billion will take them for how many months? Government will still have to intervene.
Okay. All right, let's take a short break. When we return, we continue to explore the issues with Hassan Rewan. All right, thank you so much for staying with us. People, Politics and Power, looking at education in Kaduna State. And my guest is Malam Hassan Rewan. He's the Executive Secretary of the Kaduna State Scholarship and Loans Board. Mr. Rewan, in all of this, it appears there's a category of persons who are missing from this whole scheme. And these are people one would describe as special need, the disabled.
Yeah, so for the disabled, we have a category for disabled. And let me tell you what we've done. The persons of special needs, I've never had it this good in Kaduna State. You see, as we know, culturally or in a way in Nigeria, when you have a family that has a person with disability, usually that person naturally takes a backseat. It's just like, just a survival kind of thing just get extended to that person. But you know what we're doing in Kaduna State? We're not only investing in persons with disability locally, we're investing in them even outside the country. What Malam Nasir El-Rufai's led government is saying is, whatever opportunity you give to everybody, you have to give it to persons with disability. Let me tell you what, last year, there's this gentleman, he's crippled. In fact, when he came for orientation, he came on a bike, he has to roll into the hall. But of course, he left that place with an electric chair. That student is currently studying. He's writing his first year exams now at the University of Wollongong in Dubai. We're investing 52 million naira on that gentleman. 8 students in January were processed to go outside the country. You have crippled, you have blind, you have amputee, you have people with stunted growth. So it's a continuous process. This is what we've done. This is live. These are people that we know their name, they have home addresses, they are already benefiting from the scholarship. They have hearing aids challenges, they are blind and things like that. It's all encompassing. You see, we are very high on issues of vulnerability. And you know, the normal thing that people would say is, hey, you guys had free education when you were in your times. The governor had free education, without which you would never have gone to school. We are giving free education today. We are giving free basic education today. In addition to that, there's something called edu marshals. Those people go on the street every day to try and take students off the street, that are pupils that are of school age. In addition to that, we've enacted law that prosecute parents that don't put their children in school. Now, when you come to tertiary education, we've created a safety net for people that cannot pay to be able to go to school. That's free education. The governor, for anybody that knows personally, let's go personal now. For anybody that knows the governor's history, he comes from, permit to use that word, a very, very poor background in Kaduna, where he grew up. And he knows what is poverty. He knows what education has done to alleviate and make him a better person. And it's clear by way of mandate. That's what he has mandated us to do. Now, what were the circumstances of the country at that time? How many people were going to school? What was the requirement? Today, the federal allocation that's coming to Kaduna State, over 90% of that money is going into paying salaries of just about 100,000 citizens of Kaduna State in a population of 9.8. I saw in your introduction, you were like, Kaduna State is in the news for the wrong reasons because of the NLC strike and things like that. It's because the government is trying to recalibrate the way we govern in Kaduna State. You cannot use over 90% of the federal allocation to pay less than 10% of the population of the citizens of the state. Something is not right. So in the same way in education, you cannot say that
Government put 9 billion in capital expenditure. Government put 5 billion in recurrent expenditure, while the state is bringing 288 million. And you have people in that same school that can afford it, either in lump sum or pay partly through a loan. And then you now say we should carry our eyes off these people and we should subsidize for everybody. And that's the problem we're having even in the country. You know what is happening with petroleum. You know how NNPC is crying today. The subsidy of petroleum today. So you are subsidizing for everybody. You are subsidizing for for a chief executive of a corporate organization. You are even subsidizing for MTN. You are subsidizing for Glo because they are running official cars. Whatever is the fuel subsidy fuel they are paying is not the production cost. Government is subsidizing for these people. MTN will make the profit and take a huge part of that money outside the country. Why should you? But the taxi driver that is on the street that needs to run and make money, you need to have a way of targeted subsidy for this human being so that he can have direct access to that. That is what we are trying to do in the education sector in Kaduna State.
All right. Again, we would try and look at the overall mandate of the Scholarship and Loans Board itself. And in doing that, let us look at the figures. Prior to 2015, for instance, did Kaduna State have the figures of number of children who were out of school and how many have, through this process now, been brought into a school-going bracket? Does Kaduna have statistics to show that, oh, there has been an improvement in school enrollment over this period?
I think
because of this policy.
I think we're going to be doing a mismatch if we're trying to look at school enrollment vis-a-vis the Kaduna State Scholarship and Loans Board. The mandate of the Kaduna State Scholarship and Loans Board is to intervene in tertiary education. When you're looking at the number of out-of-school children in the country, when they say 10-point-something million, of which a lot of them
has risen to 13-point-something
million, that is basic education. So if Kaduna State has made education free, I can assure you, I don't have the exact figures here, but we have figures that shows that from day one, when we introduce school feeding, when we give uniform, do you know that in some families, you see that uniform? It is the only new clothes that some family is going to have. That in itself is an incentive for a child to want to go to school and go so that he can wear something new. That will take that child to school. When we introduce school feeding program, that food, that quality food that child will eat in the afternoon is an incentive for that child to go to school. When parents know that education is very important, education is a liberator, education is a leveler, but they could not afford it. Why? They couldn't take their children to local schools because they know that the quality of the teachers in those local schools were bad. So they were struggling to take their children to private schools. Some of these private schools, you don't even know the difference between them quality-wise and the public school then. What did this government do? The government looked at it and set a primary 4 exams for the primary school teachers, and 21,000 of them failed. Is that not a disaster? That is why parents will not take their children to those schools. It's better you keep that child at home. So, but when we remove 21,000 of these teachers, we immediately replace them with 25,000. We added 4 extra of qualified teachers. And I'm aware because, at the highest level of decision making in government has decided that this testing of teachers will continue annually. The level of the quality of education, we just finished the recruitment of 7,600 teachers as I speak to you now in Kaduna State, despite COVID, despite the economic downturn. So when people are talking about downsizing, it is not downsizing. When you see us using the word right-sizing, we are recruiting every day. Kaduna State Scholarship and Loans Board just finished a recruitment of 11 people to come to join it. Other agencies are recruiting. So what we are doing is we are bringing capacity into the system. Those that have shown that they don't have capacity in the system, we're taking them out. So that's not downsizing. And the overall average figure is an increment in the staff, but of quality. We need to put our best hand in the public service.
What I meant when I asked that question is, with the scholarship scheme and the loan facility, how many more people are you projecting would have access to education? Or will this process, the increment in school fees and the social safety net, will it impede access to education in any way, or it will boost access?
Boost. Let me tell you why.
And what are the
let me tell you
projections?
why it will boost. So we had a projection in scholarship board. We wanted to provide bursary then for 10,000 people. At first, we only had about 4,000 people coming on board. After that, it started increasing gradually. That is on one hand. Secondly, I told you about the social register. We're excited about it. We have 27,000 people in tertiary institution. We didn't have that figure before now. You know, Kaduna State is driven by data. Kaduna State is driven by, and what we're talking about is credible data. What we want to do, and I'm using this opportunity to call on people, by the time we're done with this merger, by July 5th, we'll start reaching out by phone call, by email, by SMS to these people in social register. If we, Kaduna State Kaduna State University, the total number of students in Kaduna State University are about 20 to 26,000. I'm telling you that the people in that social register is 27,000. If we're able to onboard a majority of those people, I can assure you that the number of people in school will increase. And I can assure you that anybody that drops out of school is because of his own volition. Maybe he wants to drop out and he has not had a reason. Do you know why I'm saying that? Because he has the opportunity to apply. And I'm saying it today. If he does not know how to apply, that person is listening to me, that parent is listening to me, write it down. The website is scholarship.kdsg.gov.ng. scholarship.kdsg.gov.ng. That is the website.
I will charge you for that advert.
So when you do that and then you apply, then from today, begin to look for the tax certificate of your parent. If your parents are late, begin to look for the death certificate of your parent. If you are able to do that, I can assure you that you've increased astronomically your chances of getting on board to go to school. This is we're excited. All of us in government are excited because at the end of the day, we believe that the numbers will trump all this speculation.
The social register, you've talked about it severally since we started. The social register, is it updated every year, or what is the criteria for including people into the social register?
Thank you very much. So this social register is something that has been ongoing over the last, I think, 2 years. It's something that is done with development partners. I think the World Bank is involved. What we did is, we went into the Social Investment Office, went into the communities and worked with critical stakeholders. I'm talking about the traditional leaders. I'm talking about the religious leaders, the pastors, the imams. Worked with them, community. So for your name to come on social register, these people, there has to be a clearance stage. These people have to vet and understand and identify that, we know this person comes from a poor family, this person is this, and then you come on social register. Now that register, when it comes on board from the enumerators on the field, it goes through about 3 stages of verification, up to the World Bank, before we came about this. Now we cannot claim that our social register may not have 1 or 2% errors. It is work in progress. But the interesting thing, at least we have a data that we're working on. And today now, what we're doing now is we're doing some NIN. We're trying to link them up with NIN. Everybody should have a unique identifier. That is the NIN. At the end of the day, this social register will be one of the major ways that you can access social intervention in Kaduna State. So we don't just go out. We don't give social intervention in Kaduna State by political parties. The people on that social register, we don't care whether they're from APC or they're from PDP. The only thing we care is that they are citizens of Kaduna State. And in Kaduna State, our mantra is one: putting the people first.
There's a margin of error there that some of the poorest of the poor may not actually be captured.
It's a continuous process.
In that social register.
It's a continuous process. But at least we have a number to begin to work with.
Okay, 27,000.
Over 27,000.
Right. Well, it's okay. Now, let's look at the overall impact of the education reform in Kaduna State. How impactful would you say it has been?
Yeah. So you see, with Kaduna State, you see, we understand that there has to be an interplay between infrastructural development, the teachers' development, the literacy content development, the general human capital development. So we're not approaching it in Kaduna State when we're talking about education. We're not only brandishing it by the number of classrooms we've built or by the number of classrooms we've renovated, but that's critical.
We've invested money in building new classrooms. We've invested money in renovating our classrooms. Kaduna State is quite large. You have a lot of schools, and you have an increase. We've seen an increased number of students, and that has created a challenge because it means we have to create more classrooms. In fact, we're trying to also tie into technology. You know, when COVID came, it taught us a lot of lessons. We did a lot of learning through radio, through television, through YouTube. For those in the villages, through radio and co. Currently, we're looking at, you know, even segmentizing, dividing the education, the classes into two, so that people can probably come in the morning, people can come in the evening. We're looking at the possibility of taking education to people so that they don't have to come to us all the time. But this is all to make sure that we have quality, consistent learning. We will continue to train the teachers. We will continue to employ teachers. I told you we've done 7,006 just recently. It's something that is going for the final approval. This has just happened. That is outside the 25,000 that I told you that we recruited. That is outside, I think, another 11,000 that will happen going forward. So the issue of making it conducive for students to learn is critical. So we are trying to see how we can do this holistic thing. We're also trying to see how we can send students outside the country so that they can go and learn and come back into the country to come and teach. So a lot of money has gone into this, a lot of effort has gone into this, and we're beginning to see results. We're seeing the result in the number of people that are going into school. We're seeing the result in the number of people that are passing their NECO and WAEC result. Do you know what? We haven't seen the number of people. Let me give you an example, our scholarship. You know, Kaduna State citizens don't only go to school in Kaduna State University. They go to school everywhere. I can assure you that over 50% of the students that are taking our foreign scholarship outside the country are from Kaduna State University, merit scholarship, merit. And merit scholarship, you have to have a first class. About over 50% of them are from KASU. That is telling you something. These students are coming out of the first class. And if you say that that first class is a challenge, they are outside the country and they're doing their best out there. We are getting feedback from those states telling us, from those countries, telling us that these students are excellent students. They are students of Kaduna State Universities, more, not from Ahmad Bello University, not from BUK, from Kaduna State University. That tells you something.
This administration has just about 2 years or even less to go. Yeah. Now, what is the guarantee that these reforms that you have spoken so glowingly about will endure beyond the lifespan of this administration?
Well, as far as we're concerned, sustainability is key to our plan. The first things we do is that we don't just go in and just make changes. We develop guidelines and we pass the necessary, we've amended the necessary laws. You understand? And then we've shown people. Now, after this government, we believe that the APC government will succeed itself. And where that happens, we believe that whoever comes on board will continue with these programs. However, in the situation, in the event that the people decide to want to reverse the gains, the people have the right, they have to say, they will see the difference. The people have to stand, the people have to defend it. We cannot do anything beyond our time in office. Our time in office is May 29. Once we are done, we are done. It is left for the people to determine how they want to. Do they want to go back to the yesteryears when before you get scholarship you have to come with a note? Where before you get scholarship, or let me give you an example, where if I want to get market, if I'm at the top level of government in Kaduna State, I don't have shops in the central market. Before now, I should be the one, I will have like 15 shops, then I'll give it to people to come and rent the shops, and then they pay me. What did this government do? This government said, no, we don't want middlemen. This government gave this shop direct to the occupier, brought mortgage financing for them. So we can start paying that money gradually and own the shop. So is that true? Do people want to go back there? If you know Kaduna State, people used to joke that when you come to Kaduna State, from the time of Sir Ahmad Bello up to today, you will find your way through. You will never see any changes. I can tell you, for me, there are some places in Kaduna State today that I get to lose my way. The infrastructure development is gigantic. So do people want to replace that with the rent-seeking regime of the past? I think people are wiser now.
Okay. Well, we will just hope that endures for now. On a final note, there have been very critical issues of insecurity in Kaduna State as far as the education sector is concerned. How are you tackling this right now?
Yeah, the situation of insecurity in Kaduna State is a major issue. it's one thing that keeps everybody awake at night. The issues of banditry, and these people have targeted Kaduna State and the education sector for obvious reasons. You know, our stand in Kaduna State is that we are not going to negotiate with bandits. We are not going to pay ransom, you know, to bandits. And I think people are trying to teach us a lesson to say that, you know, we have to comply. The reality is that there's this ministry called the Ministry of Internal Security and Home Affairs. This ministry have very capable hands, and this ministry is tasked with coordinating the the security forces engagement. What we are just trying to do is to improve the level of intelligence gathering, to improve the level of this community, you know, speaking out. Last week, the governor was in some of the communities. He met with the leaders, he met with the people. The need for people to give information out. These bandits live in our midst. So these are the only things we can do. Don't forget that as a state government, the security forces are manned by the federal forces. So all we just need to do, and then we also need to look at long-term effect. We need to look at how we should put people in school, so that if they don't become ready tool in the hands of bandits.
Not only putting them in school, but making sure that they remain in school.
Making sure they
and when bandits are every day attacking schools,
yeah. So we've also we've done two things. We've insisted that we're not going to close our schools. We do on-the-spot analysis to identify prone areas, which we may have no option than to close down. But and then we move the students to the areas that are safe. So we are determined that this should not distort the academic curriculum of our school. So we're determined to do that. And it's something we're focused on day in, day out. Yes.
All right, thank you so much. Ms. Malam Hassan Rewan is the Executive Secretary of the Kaduna State Scholarship and Loans Board, joining me here to talk about the state of education in Kaduna State. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
And to you, our viewers out there, we thank you for investing your time with us on the program. Join us again when we bring you a fresh edition of People, Politics, and Power. I am Mimoni Amarere. Bye for now.